Welcome to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, broadcasting from London through New York to New York and the tri-state area on WBAI.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
Welcome, as I say, to the mother of all talk shows for the next hour. I'll be here. I'll be trying to have a conversation with you, maybe even a debate. But I also have a duty to stress that this is a fundraising period and to give you two telephone numbers. The first and, frankly, the most important one is the number to ring to pledge. That's 212-209-2950. That's 212-209-2950. Now, I can't adumbrate the phenomenal range of names and places in the tri-state area that Ms. Goodman just did, but I can echo just as powerfully and as sincerely as she did the absolute need to keep this radio station alive. Because if you want the foxification, the Murdochification of the international media to continue to grow and grow, then sit on your hands for the next hour and don't give to WBAI. But if you want to keep alive this precious flame of free speech and freedom of expression in the United States of America, then you have to, I'm afraid, pay for it. Because as was made famous in Wall Street, where WBAI currently sits, there is no such thing as a free lunch. You cannot eat the free lunch that WBAI provides unless you help to pay for it, because otherwise, well, the kitchen just closes down. So the number to pledge is 212-209-2950, and I'm sure that Tony will be talking to me in the course of the show and trying to encourage you, as I am, to make that call, to make that donation. And the other telephone number to take down is 212-209-2900. That's the number to call to join this conversation with me, even to cross swords with me in debate. But I give you due warning that I have debated with some of the great giants of public life, like Senator Norman Coleman, or should I say ex-Senator Norman Coleman. I've debated with Tony Blair, with Margaret Thatcher, Gordon Brown. I have clashed with politicians and pundits all over the world. But don't let that put you off. If you want to have an argument with me, come along and call me, 212-209-2900. I am transfixed here in Britain, as I understand increasingly. The audience in the United States is transfixed by the gigantic movement of the plates, the seismic movement of plates which is going on inside the British political system, British political and public life, and media life, which is, of course, the fourth estate of the British polity. The media will never be the same again. We had in Parliament yesterday one of the mother of all parliamentary days. It was a red-letter day, spoiled actually by a fool who garnered sympathy for octogenarian Rupert Murdoch by pushing a plate full of foam in his face and giving Tiger Mummy, the wife of Rupert Murdoch, Wendy Deng, the opportunity to hurtle herself in a way that Bruce Lee would have been proud of, to smack the miscreant about the head and then slam the cream pie in his face. She did a fantastic job, which is more than can be said for her husband, Rupert Murdoch. Here's my own take on his performance yesterday. As we say in Scotland, I wouldn't send him out to buy a loaf. That is a loaf of bread, because I wouldn't be sure that he'd reach the shops on time without getting lost, and I wouldn't be sure that he'd remember what it was he was to buy, and I wouldn't be sure that he'd get the right change, and I wouldn't be sure that he'd find his way back home. In other words, he shouldn't be out other than accompanied by a nurse. He is, well, how can I put this kindly, over the hill. He cannot be left in charge of a multi-billion-dollar media empire, because he's clearly out to lunch, dinner, and tomorrow's breakfast. And the son, the smooth, slippery, oleaginous son, James Murdoch, with his corporate speak coming like a fountain out of the fountainhead of the chief executive of News International, the man who presided over the disaster in the British media, about which I'll say more if you need me to, but you've probably read it all, at least in the better newspapers in the New York and the tri-state area. It was a comprehensive beating by a group of parliamentarians of a couple of moguls of the international global media industry of a kind that they simply have never encountered before. You see, money doesn't talk, it swears, as Bob Dylan said, and it's been swearing all their lives in the boardrooms and wherever else they do their dirty dealing. But they've never had to do it in front of the world's media. They've never had to do it in a place they couldn't walk out. They've never had to do it in a place where they couldn't throw their weight around in the way they presumably normally do in their conversations. They were forced to answer questions, and some of the questions were extremely profound. And they have continued to reverberate today. One of the most important revelations from yesterday was that the man, the private investigator, who had been on their behalf hacking everyone's phone, including, of course, my own, the man that was hacking the phones of dead girls, murder victims, the man that was hacking the phones of dead soldiers, the paper that backed our boys, turned out to be the paper that hacked our boys. The man who did all these dirty deeds was still, until this morning, having all his very substantial legal fees paid by the newspaper, which claims that he alone was responsible for the plight that the newspaper finds itself in. They have paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars to a man who is a convicted felon and who presumably is about to go to prison all over again for a whole set of new criminal offenses. Rupert Murdoch was continuing to pay his legal bills, and there's only one reason that could possibly be, dear listener, and that is to purchase his continued silence and cooperation from the standpoint of News International. So you're familiar in New York City, at least according to the movies, to the idea of a family business of the Corleone type. Well, that's the Murdochs. They are the Sopranos, but not nearly as nice. They are the Corleones, though without the handsome genes. They are a group of organized criminals. Discuss 209-2900. That's 212-209-2900. That's the number to call me, George Galloway, in the mother of all talk shows on WBAI. Ife, without whom there could be no show, is fielding the calls for me. Ife, do we have any?
Yes, you have Martin from Sleepy Hollow, New York.
What a wonderful name, Sleepy Hollow. Is it very sleepy, Martin, or is that a misnomer?
Well, actually, George, it's about 30 miles north of New York City. It is the old North Tarrytown, renamed.
And is it as nice as it sounds?
Here. Yeah, Washington Irving did live here many years ago, the author of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question for you.
Go ahead, Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you. I saw you, by the way, at the Ethical Culture Society last year. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I want to contribute to help the Palestinian people. What organization do you think would make the best use of any contribution, specifically the people of Gaza?
I can't give you that just off pat. I'd need to look at that, and we'd need to discuss it. So let me ask you to email me to office@georgegalloway.com, and I'll look into what the best thing to do in the United States would be. Depends what it is that you want to give and how you want to contribute. But, Martin, it's a very noble thought, and I'm deeply grateful to you. And I hope you'll have some left to give to the fundraising appeal for WBAI. Thanks very much, Martin.
I will indeed. Thank you, George. Bye.
Thank you, brother. 212-209-2950 is the number to make a contribution. I can't actually hear that phone ringing, but maybe that's because it's out of my earshot. But if it doesn't ring and we don't get the donations, well, we can't keep this show on the road. So 212-209-2950 if you want to contribute. If you want to speak to me, 209-2900. Ife, any more calls?
Yes, you have John. John from the Bronx.
Hi, John,
Yes.
in the Bronx. Welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Well, thank you very much, but actually, that's an AKA. All right, I had to use that because if I said who I really am, I may not get online. So I just wanted to say, this is the angry brother.
Okay, angry brother, go ahead.
Yeah, listen, before you cut me off last time and didn't let me finish, I want to bring up a point. I know there's a hot issue right now with Rupert Murdoch, but I want to finish this point up. When you said about, the conversation last time was about homosexual marriages or marriages between lesbian and homosexuals. And
Yes, I remember it. Yes, I remember it, yeah.
And you were giving an example that if I guess God has something to do with it. And I've been listening to people giving references to Bible from the Bible pertaining to that. Well, one thing they don't use is find it strange. They don't use Lot. I mean, the only example, if you're going to claim that God, whether God says it's okay, if that is okay or not, you have to use the example of Lot because that's the only thing in the Bible where it indicates a society where, homosexuality, that type of thing was conducted. Really, no other society in the Bible that was a forefront. But Sodom and Gomorrah was the only thing in the Bible which referenced that. And so, according to the Bible, I mean, whether you believe in the Bible or not, but according to the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. I mean, totally wiped off the face of the earth. So that would explain if you're using the Bible. If you're using the Bible, God totally does not approve of that type of conduct or behavior. Prophet Lot came and...
brother, I am going to cut you off again because I'm tired of debating that with you. That's the only reason. It's boredom, not fear of the power of your argument. I can assure you of that. We just have to agree to disagree, brother. I think that Jesus loved his children, God's children, brothers and sisters, all. I think that was the message of Jesus. I don't believe that Jesus would have encouraged hatred or ostracization of any human being. God will decide on the last day, on the judgment day, how everybody lived. He may or may not approve of where I or you or anyone else listening put their private parts from time to time or even over and over again. He may also weigh up that there are other issues to be weighed up. He may also decide that the way people live their lives, how they love each other, how they show that love, how they consider themselves to be their brother's keeper and their sister's keeper, how they treated God's earth, how they treated other people, how they acted, not talked, but acted in relation to other people and in relation to the teachings of God. And God may on the last day decide that, well, who sleeps with whom is a bit less important than all these other matters. I'm certainly hoping so. Thanks very much for that call. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows.
Sounding different from most of America, George Galloway from Scotland.
That's me. But I'm in London now, and it's very dull and grey. It's been the dullest, greyest July I have ever known. But I am off to Beirut on Saturday for the annual Summer University of Palestine, where some of the world's best speakers will be addressing some of the world's best activists on the subject of Palestine. But, of course, I'll be with you next Wednesday, as always. Ife, do we have any other calls?
Yes, coming back is Nefertiti from Queens.
It's the Queen of Queens, Nefertiti, as I describe her. Nefertiti, how are you?
Good. And how are you?
I'm very well. Good to hear from you again. What would you like to say?
Well, thank you, and good morning to you, and good morning to Ife.
Well, without Ife, we just wouldn't be here. That's just a fact.
Yes. With all the troubles going on around the world, we see who the true perpetrators are. And a poet said, the devil said that when he fell out of heaven, he landed in England. So, who are the descendants of those Englishmen? Are those criminals who were transported out of England to right here in the American colonies? And
I don't know that we transported our criminals to you. I think we transported them to Australia, which is why the Australian people are such a fine group.
There was an original penal colony here and Australia.
Was there? I didn't know that. Where was it?
In one of the original states. I don't know where exactly.
So we must look further into that.
Yes, we
must. As you know, my great grandmother came the other way. She emigrated from New York to Scotland. I think she got on the wrong boat, but there you are.
Well, we see the descendants of these criminals. They're the ones running the country.
Well, I don't think that President Obama can be described as a British penal colony deportee. I don't think so.
It's my firm belief that President Obama is not the one running the country. Behind the scenes, you will, I'm sure, know that there are a lot of elite groups that are intent on decimating humanity, and we see it every day, right here in New York.
I don't really buy that. I think that's too much of an alibi you're giving President Obama. If he's not running the country, he could be running the country. He could run it if he wanted to run it. He could run it if he wanted to depend on the people that elected him and tell the people the truth and act differently to what he's acting. He could do that. He has the democratic power and the mandate to do that. So if he is letting other people set the agenda, well, more fool him and more fool us for having trusted him.
Well, we just have to see. For those people who stand up and to do the right thing, they're shut down. I mean, it's classic. That's historical. So,
well, let's hope that doesn't happen to thee and me. Thanks very much, the Queen of Queens, Nefertiti. Aoife, do we have any other calls?
Yes. Well, actually, this person just dropped off. We have Mike. Mike from New Jersey.
Hi, Mike in New Jersey. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. Nice to hear from you. What would you like to say?
I'd like to talk about, well, first of all, you have a great show. It's excellent. I've listened to WBAI for like the past 10 years, and thank God for media outlets like this that tell the truth as opposed to the mainstream media. This is such a great public forum.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thanks for your support.
You're welcome. Regarding Rupert Murdoch and everything that's been coming out, what do you feel could happen out of all this? Do you think there'll be a dent in his empire, or do you think the people now
I really do. I don't think anything will ever be the same again. I can certainly speak for this side of the Atlantic that no politician will ever want to be seen courting the Murdoch empire again, because the toxicity of these people just has to be felt in the country to be believed. I mean, these are the people who ran populist campaigns in defense of children against pedophiles, but were actually hacking the telephones of children who had been murdered by pedophiles. These are the people who beat the drums to send our young soldiers off to war, and then when the soldiers were killed, hacked their telephones to see if they could get any dirty stories to fill their filthy news pages with. So everything has changed utterly here. My view is that yesterday's performance must surely make the shareholders of News Corp, who are mainly American, of course, and American institutions, must make them conclude that Murdoch is past his sell-by date, and that James Murdoch, who may have learned a bit of corporate speak and may know how to put his head in that "oh shucks, Bill Clinton" type of angle that invites sympathy and empathy, but that's about as far as it goes. As a 38-year-old man, I wouldn't let him run anything to do with my business, and I can't see why these shareholders would allow him. The more interesting thing is whether this scandal goes to number 10 Downing Street, whether this scandal will bring down the British Prime Minister because of his proximity to the Murdochs, which was truly extraordinary in its scale. Go ahead, sir.
Right. No,
Yeah, I just feel that I'm like, I mean, I just can't believe that, hacking a dead girl's phone. That's too much is too much. I mean, the public, even here in the States and there, anywhere in the world, has to come out and really, really oppose these corporations and not fund them by buying their newspapers or books or anything like that. And
That's right. And it may have happened in America. It may have happened to the telephones of victims of 9/11. That's being investigated now by the FBI.
That's incredible. But thank you very much. And
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, brother. And that was a strong supporter of ours in New Jersey. He's no doubt already donated. But here's the number, 212-209-2950. That's 212-209-2950. If we're going to keep this precious flame of freedom alive, then it has to be paid for. And it can only be paid for by you, because there's no billionaire, there's no Murdoch, there's no none of the other plutocrats are going to keep WBAI alive so that George Galloway can tell you the truth once a week for an hour from London, or Amy Goodman can talk to you every day and give you the truth. That's just not going to happen. Only you can keep this alive. 212-209-2950. Or you could call me to have a chat. That's 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have another?
Yes, you have Ed from South Jamaica, Queens.
Ed in South Jamaica in Queens, thanks very much for calling. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, how you doing, Mr. Galloway?
Yes, bro, very good. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you, too. Well, with all due respect, I mean, I've been listening to WBAI since 1989. I'm a contributing member, and I've also volunteered on occasions. And I just had two questions for you. No disrespect intended, but number one, I've been listening to your show on and off since you've been on, and I don't really see the point or the relevance of your show. I mean, your opinions are often interesting, but I don't see what forbearance they have on matters that are happening in the United States, since you're located in London, England, and you're not an active politician, number one. And number two, why is your show afforded the privilege of not offering premiums during a fundraising drive, since there is a dire need for fundage at WBAI? Thank you very much for your time.
You said it was with respect, but it didn't sound like there was much respect in the call. I can't answer the second question. That's a matter for WBAI, and as a member of WBAI, I'm sure you have ways that you could ask that question. And if you think I'm so irrelevant, it's kind of surprising that you're not only listening, but spending your money to phone me up and tell me how irrelevant I am. I'll just have to hope that that's not widely shared by the rest of the listeners. I don't myself think it is, because there are very few people who think that Queens is the end of the world, or that New York is the end of the world, or that the United States is the end of the world. Most people think that we live in a world that is round, and that what somebody has to say in London, as you so disparagingly put it, just might be of some interest to the people in New York and the tri-state area. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows.
My fellow Americans, I want to share with you an interesting program for two reasons. One, it's interesting, and two, it's interesting. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows, big in Texas.
Well, I hope it's interesting. Our last caller didn't think so. Maybe there will be others with a different point of view. But hey, if you don't want me, just say. Nobody's paying me to do this. 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have any calls?
Well, we have me here, George. And I have
Hi, Tony.
Good morning.
Oh, dear. That last caller hurt my feelings, I'll tell you.
I can hear the tear rolling down your cheek.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's one of the reasons that your show doesn't have premiums attached to it is because we get so many of our members who say, can't we move away from that model where we're hawking things on the air, whatever language they might use. And we thought that we would try as an experiment on your program and on a couple of other programs, on another program rather, to let's see if it's relevant. Let's see if the audience will call up and pledge their support because they care about the program. And so we're going to ask people to do that now, to call up and make a pledge of support for the mother of all talk shows and the fine work that George Galloway does here each morning. And of course, I've heard that argument myself about relevancy in terms of other programming. And as it turns out, David Letterman works in Los Angeles as well as he works in New York, as does Jay Leno works as well in New York as he does in Los Angeles, and that's because good programming is simply good programming. And that's what we have here on the mother of all talk shows. 212-209-2950 is the phone number for you to call and pledge your support. If you believe in this program, if you disagree with that other caller, and you think that the show has relevance, call up and show your support to WBAI. Sponsor this program, the mother of all talk shows. I think it's a fantastic program and a great addition to WBAI's lineup. So make your voice heard by this time, instead of calling in on the number to talk, to do just that. Call in and pledge your support. 212.
Good. I'm hearing the phone ringing, actually, Tony. 212-209-2950 is beginning to ring with a little more regularity. I'm a bit encouraged about that. How's the drive going overall?
Oh, it's going terribly slow. I left here for 4 days and went to Las Vegas, and I don't know what I was thinking. But we're going to pick that back up, and we're going to start right here on this program. And we're going to start with the mother of all talk shows. There are folks calling in to pledge their support, George, and that's what this is about. Let's see if people really will call up and support because they believe in WBAI and what we do here, and because they believe in the mother of all talk shows. That's really what the station is about. We're about the mission of the station on this show. And there is a few voices in American media more progressive than that of George Galloway. So
well, I appreciate that, Tony. And people could show whether they disagree with that last caller by donating now. They could dial now 212-209-2950 as much as they can afford. Obviously, not everyone has the same amount of disposable income. Those that have got $1,000 to dispose can have me for breakfast, lunch, or dinner when I'm next in New York, which I intend to be in the fall. But you can donate, as Tony said, at several levels. And the way to do that is to ring now, 212-209-2950. That will mend my broken heart after that faithless caller.
Yeah,
a moment or two ago.
You were ripped up there. 212-209-2950. Does the show have relevance? Is it important that we have a station like WBAI? In fact, you were one of the first people on your program that I heard talking about the international news scandal, or News International
scandal.
I've
been plugging away for such a long time on this. I feel my time has come, Tony. You know, I was a victim of the phone hacking. My case comes to court in December. I'm on the British media practically morning till night at the moment, because suddenly something that was our preoccupation on the progressive left has become a national consensus. And, sometimes you go a whole lifetime without vindication. And I'm sure that WBAI has been plugging away on various issues that are regarded as minority causes. But one day, those causes, too, will capture the imagination of the majority and become a commonplace piece of the orthodoxy. But, of course, that couldn't happen if the station didn't exist. And it can only exist if people pay for it. 212-209-2950.
Yes, they must pledge their support. And I intend today for them to really disprove that caller and to show that there is indeed relevance in this very progressive voice and very important voice, in my opinion, in American media. We have such a unique opportunity here, folks, to have a Pacifica station. There are only 5 of them, and certainly there are hundreds, or there are a few hundred affiliates, about 150 affiliates around the country, but we have 5 of these stations. It is a dear resource. It is something that I'm very proud to be connected with, and something that's very important, George. We have so few real progressive voices, and certainly only one progressive network in the country. So having this, supporting this, is of paramount importance, and that's why we ask you, instead of having commercials, instead of being sponsored by the likes of Rupert Murdoch, we ask you, our listeners, to call up and to pledge your support and to be a part of what we do here, to keep this station going, to keep shows like the Mother of All Talk shows on the airway, shows like Democracy Now!, shows like Talk Back with You, Hamilton. Your pledges support all of that programming. 212-209-2950. Here's what I'd like to do, George. I'd like to get 3 more people on the line, and then we're going to take a few more phone calls. But let's get 3 more supporters calling up. Pledge at the $50 level this morning. Take out your American Express, MasterCard, or Visa, and pledge in the affirmative. Speak in an affirmative voice about the Mother of All Talk shows and about George Galloway here on WBAI 99.5 FM. 212-209-2950. We're not offering you a premium, though you may have heard some premium that you want to get. We will certainly take that and acknowledge that. What we're offering you is really good programming, and WBAI is the gift that you get. There's the first one. We want to get 2 more people, George. Let's get those other 2 people to get on the phone.
2 more so that we can take some more calls. 212-209-2950. We need 2 more people to ring up and donate. so that we can get on with the show. Thanks very much indeed, Tony. Let's keep the phone lines open until we get these two calls.
Yes, there's two of them. We need one more.
209-2950. Is that another one in?
We got one more in. We're waiting for one other person to call up and do the same thing. Pledge your support. Pledge at the $100 level. Pledge at the $50 level. But support WBAI. Support this voice that's so unique in the media landscape in this country. Without it, George, so many things. We have broken so many stories. We have driven so many stories from this platform because we are not controlled by the mass media or by the corporations.
Exactly. Imagine if Murdoch owned this station. Well, I wouldn't be here for a start. And there would be nobody worth listening to on it. It would be like Fox.
Absolutely, and those people are so misinformed, and so there's so many of them that are the study after study shows that the most misinformed people in this country are the consumers of Fox News, and that's why WBAI is so important. When you have the likes,
and it's the biggest news service in America.
Absolutely.
So, President Lincoln was right. You can fool some of the people
all of
the time.
Absolutely. And those are indeed the Fox consumers. 212-209-2950. One of those calls fell away, George. We want to get that other person. Be that final person. We'll want one more of you to call up and pledge your support at the $100 level, at the $50 level. Just know that you're supporting free speech radio. Know that you're supporting the kind of media that simply doesn't exist in this country anymore. It's why we refer to ourselves as the only left, because the other stations have taken a turn. If you are listening online, don't forget that you can also pledge there at WBAI.org. Pledge, though, and support this station. Let's take a couple more phone calls, George.
Yep. Let's see if we can get that final call so I can press on. 212-209-2950. I need one more donor to come on the line now so that we can try and squeeze in some more discussion. So please ring 212-209-2950.
And it is a question of what direction the station should move in, what direction we should go in terms of fundraising and how we do this on the air, whether or not we're going to offer premiums. We are not offering you a premium. The mother of all talk shows is the premium. WBAI is the premium. Thank you so much for that call. Eve, do we have another caller?
Yes, you have Cal from Rockville Center, Long Island.
Long Island. I always like to talk to Long Island. Yes. Cal, is it Cal?
Yes, it's Cal. How are you, George?
I'm well, brother. Go ahead.
I want to thank you first. I'm a Palestinian American. I want to thank you for helping us and supporting us, and that caller that called before from Sleepy Hollow who wanted to support our people.
Yes, it was very touching to get such a call, and I'm sure he's going to write to me, and I'll put him in the right direction for sure.
Thank you. And for us, it's very difficult. For example, I always like to talk about the issue of the Palestinian plight, but my father feels that we have no rights here and we shouldn't open our mouth. But I was telling him as an American, I think we have a right to.
You do. You have every right, and of course, those who support Israel are not shy of deploying their rights. And if we sit by and don't speak up against injustice, then what are we going to say on the last day when the Lord asks us what we did with our lives?
Well, that's right. But my father feels that as Palestinians, we really are. This is his thing. We don't have a right because he says that his feeling is that just work, take care of your family, and that's it. Because as Palestinians, we are not we are vilified. We are not considered good Americans sometimes, which is totally false. Because I feel I'm a proud American and I love America. And I only buy American products to show you how much I love the country. And I love its, and he tells me, listen, you should be lucky you're here. You could be back in one of these Arab countries, and you'd see how much freedom you have.
Well, of course, there's no point in having freedom if you're not going to use it. And we do in Britain and in America have more freedom than some people in some countries. That's why we have a responsibility to support those people in those countries to win their freedom. And that's what this Arab revolution, which is currently unrolling, is about. But there would be no point in saying we lived in a free country if we were too frightened to use the freedoms. And if you don't use something, well, it soon rusts and soon falls away. So I hate to say this, but I think that your father is wrong about this. And I think that those who have rights in America have a duty to stand up and use those rights. Otherwise, the United States will continue to be the financier and the armorer of a very great crime against the Palestinian people, a crime that was authored by the British in the building I sat in for 25 years, which was the author of all this disaster of the Palestinian people. But, of course, nowadays, for a very long time past, it's the U.S. taxpayer who is paying for every bullet that goes in the back of every Palestinian child who's killed in a refugee camp in an Israeli raid in the West Bank or in Gaza or in Jerusalem. And we simply cannot allow that to continue uncontested. I don't know if you're a religious man, but I am, and I believe that we will be asked on the last day what we did, not what other people did, not what other people forbade us to do, not that what we were frightened to do, but what we did with the precious gift that God gave us of life. Thanks for that call from Long Island. Ife, do we have any others?
Yes, you actually have Ed from Brooklyn.
Ed in Brooklyn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Galloway.
Thank you, sir.
I certainly echo your statements on Rupert Murdoch, and certainly his exploitation of the dead and the vulnerable is nothing new. I recently finished the brilliant book by John Pilger, Hidden Agendas, and there he describes, in the Sydney Daily Mirror in 1964, there was allegedly a schoolgirl's diary, a 14-year-old schoolgirl's diary of her sexual exploits published. It led to the suicide of a 13-year-old classmate, and it came out later that it was complete fabrication.
Yes.
On a somewhat related note, after the Hillsborough tragedy in 1989, they refused, I think it was the Sun, maybe the Mirror.
It was the Sun. It was the Sun on its front page alleged that the 96 victims of that disaster, who were crushed to death at a football match, were urinated upon, had their wallets stolen, their pockets rifled by their fellow Liverpool supporters.
That's
and
right.
Murdoch's papers have been boycotted in the Liverpool area ever since that time.
That's right, and not only that, but they refused to respect the wishes of the family and not attend the funerals and take photographs and whatnot. So there's certainly many reasons to hate Murdoch, union busting around the world, tax evasion around the world. But for Americans who perhaps are unfamiliar with his modus operandi, this phone hacking thing is not unrelated to other operations. And
no, that's right. I mean, this in a way is the least of his crimes. He has de-civilized the entire media market in the United Kingdom. Right. And I think with Fox, he's had a good go at doing the same thing in your country.
Yeah, that sort of leads me to my final comment that I certainly hope you're right that this is going to, usher in lots of change in terms of media discourse in the UK. But I wonder if, and to some extent the US, I wonder if he won't become a sacrificial lamb in terms of, okay, this figurehead is no longer sort of acceptably to be seen in public with, but corporate media power will perhaps just be uncontested.
Well, of course, I'm not predicting the end of capitalism anytime soon, and
I was hoping
Murdoch would be replaced by another capitalist, but presumably and hopefully one not quite as red in tooth and claw, not quite the beast that he and his family have made the current News Corp. So it will be a step forward, that's all. It certainly won't be arriving at any destination of any Elysian field of true media freedom. But it has, the whole issue, it has at least raised the debate and opened people's minds to what genuine media should look like. And one of the key questions, I think, in my country, I'm sure also in yours, is plurality. We have to create an environment in which 1,000 flowers can bloom, in which it's possible to access subsidized newsprint, for example, so that people's voices can find their way into print. That the regulatory framework should be one which has a default position of having as many different television stations owned by as many different people and points of view as possible. What we have here in Britain is 40% of all the newspapers sold every day in the United Kingdom are owned by Rupert Murdoch. And he was allowed crossover ownership, not just of this vast newspaper empire, but an increasingly powerful television empire, which he was only days away from succeeding in procuring 100% ownership of that television station. And if he had got it, then Sky News, which is increasingly influential and is very good, by the way, would look like Fox News. That's undoubtedly how Murdoch would have taken it. So here we have a man with absolutely overweening media power, who is not a citizen of the country, who pays no tax in the country, who can't vote in the country, but decides who is going to be prime minister. And when the prime minister of his choice gets in, he comes along with his demands for the regulatory and legislative agenda that suits him, as well as the broader political agenda that suits him.
Perhaps it's a pipe dream, but I hope that all those sorts of details will become more widely known in the mainstream media. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Very kind of you. 212-209-2900 is the number to call to talk to me. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows.
This is the President of the United States. Yes, I promised you change. Change you could believe in. Well, here it is. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows.
Change you can believe in. Now, do you remember that? 212-209-2950 is the number to donate to something that you can believe in, and that is this lacune of free speech and freedom of expression, this oasis of freedom of speech and freedom of expression in the American media market. 212-209-2950. Or you could call me, 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have any others?
Yes, you have Alexander from New York.
Alexander, welcome to the show. What would you like to say, friend?
Yes, before I may respond to last week's comment on 2 points, I pledge $25 for every week in the month of July there's any mention of Cyprus. That's $100.
Okay.
I'll make arrangements to auto pay monthly. I wish I could pledge more.
Outstanding, brother. Outstanding. Well, I'm glad to discuss Cyprus with you in any case, but especially in the light of that information. What would you like to say, sir?
Yes, my first point, last week you described Cyprus as tiny. Cyprus is not tiny. In land area, it's about the same exact size as Puerto Rico. A recent government census of government-controlled Cyprus showed a population of 800,000 and an estimated 200,000 in occupied areas. That's over a million.
I'm sorry if that offended you. Everything's relative, of course. Go on.
Yes, there are over half a dozen European countries with smaller populations.
Half a dozen European countries with smaller populations than 800,000?
Than Cyprus, yes.
What would those countries be as a matter of interest?
Off the top of my head, Iceland, Malta.
Yeah, most people would consider them small countries. But anyway, never mind. I don't want to offend you, so let me concede the sheer scale of Cyprus. But it was the political problems in Cyprus that worried us, wasn't it?
Yes. So to tell you the truth, George, I didn't understand why the referendum in 2004 was voted down until I studied the actual proposal which was voted on. It was named Adnan 5. Actually, I understand General Secretary Adnan had little to do with it, but it carries his name. Adnan 5 would have returned only a small number of displaced persons to their homes, and it would have legitimized the Turkish apartheid colony. Basically, Adnan 5 sucked. That's why it was voted down.
Well, okay, I'm sorry it was voted down, but let's hope we get another referendum that can be voted in the very near future, yeah?
Yes, there is strength in unity, both in Cyprus and in Israel-Palestine. I
agree. All the best, brother. Thanks for the call and thanks for the donations. If you want to donate, it's 212-209-2950. If you want to call me to talk, it's 212-209-2900. Ife.
Yes, you have Robert from the Bronx on.
Robert in the Bronx, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Mr. Galloway, I want to say that I've been a fan of yours ever since you went to the U.S. Senate.
Thank you. That was a good day for me. 2005, yes.
You were beautiful. No, I don't think anybody's ever shoved it home like you did.
Thanks, brother. People can catch it on YouTube if they missed it. Just type in my name, George Galloway, and U.S. Senate.
I have you on my Facebook page, Mr. Galloway. you don't have to give a premium. It's just a joy to download your MP3 and to listen to it and to save it. I hope.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I hope, I was going to ask you a question. If I donate $1,000 for your lunch, who pays for the lunch?
You pay for the lunch. That would defeat the object if I was spending the station's money on our victuals.
No, I remember you're Scotch. I know you're Scottish.
Well, you know that's a fair observation. It's hard to part a Scotsman from his money. Thanks for that call, brother. I really enjoyed that.
Galloway,
212. Yes, go on.
You and stay with us. We love you and stay with us.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. 212-209-2900. I'm a miserable Scotsman, but you are big-hearted, generous citizens of the United States, so you can donate on 212-209-2950. Aoife, do we have another call?
Yes, you have Paul from Staten Island.
Paul in Staten Island, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I think if anyone thinks he's going anywhere, Murdoch, they're crazy. You could already see the political cover that he's getting. But I wanted to ask you...
where is that? In the United States, you mean?
No, I mean in Britain. I said
he's not getting any political. He's not getting any political cover in Britain. I can assure you. People are running away from him at 100 miles an hour.
But I mean, at the usually at those commissions, the commissions they hold, and the questioning is very light, and they're able to say, "Well, we knew nothing about it" and stuff.
No, you're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong. First of all, there are criminal charges pending on some of the individuals being discussed, and so their cases could not be discussed. But the questions that were asked by the committee were some of the toughest and most probing questions ever visited by a select committee on any witness. And believe me, their answers, or rather the absence of their answers, has caused them much, much deeper damage. And today they're in deeper trouble than they were yesterday. So have some faith, brother.
Okay, can I ask you one question? Yeah, no, I can see it on that. You probably... what do you think's behind who's working behind the scenes? I heard a question about... I'm on Staten Island, New York, and I heard that Rockefeller was behind the politicians out here. And for the longest time, I couldn't understand why they were so corrupt and incompetent. And I
don't know anything about the Rockefellers, but one of the Rockefeller family, Jay Rockefeller, is now on Murdoch's case and is seeking to bring to justice anyone who's been involved in similar problems in the U.S. to those that are now under investigation here in Britain. That's all I know about the Rockefellers in this picture.
Okay, yeah, I'm just questioning the powers behind the scenes in all matters. You know, the politicians and the news media. Who's the real powers behind it? I'm questioning.
Well, the real powers that could be behind it are us. I always feel that the people who head off down the blind alley of conspiracy theories are actually providing themselves an alibi for not actually doing anything about where we are. We are, in your case, in your country, in our hundreds of millions, people who have political power. But we have to use it, and we have to combine with others who are ready to use it. We have to organize for it, and we have to make sure that we don't allow it to be lost once we have it in our hands, as we appear to have over President Obama. We had power for a moment when we chose and then elected President Obama, but he's turned out to be not the bill of goods that was offered for sale in the first place. And we have to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down, and start all over again, I'm afraid. There's no other alternative to it. But if we just sit and believe that there are powers behind the scenes that are all powerful, then we might as well accept everything that we've got coming, because we're certainly not doing anything to change it. So I'm one of those who believes in staying on the front foot. I have done all my life. I'm 56 years of age. I've been a political activist since I was 13. Some of the causes I've fought for are winning now. Some have already won. Some have been lost. But the reality is, as I keep saying, I will not be able to explain some of my personal behavior on the final day. Some of my personal behavior will no doubt be disapproved of. But my public behavior and the effort that I've put in to the liberation of mankind and womankind, I hope will count in my favor and outweigh anything that I might have done with my private parts. Thanks for that, Ife. Any other calls?
Well, George, we're going to spend the rest of the hour trying to get folks to call up and make their pledges of support. We even have somebody who already called, and EW, I believe, was his name, and he's not going to get on because we've got to get these phones ringing. We need to try and raise another $2,000 in this final 10 minutes of the program, George.
Okay.
So let's see if we can get those phones lit up once again. The
so
number
$2,000 at 100, that's 20 at 100, or 40 at 50. We'll be lucky if we get 40 callers in 10 minutes. Let's go for the hundreds.
Let's do it.
Who can give us 100? Please call us now and pledge 100. Please.
212-209-2950. You're pledging to support the mother of all talk shows. You're pledging to support progressive radio, and you're pledging to support free speech radio. 212-209-2950. Those $25 calls and those $50 calls also matter to us. Make your pledge of support, though. It is the way we keep WBAI on the airwaves. It's the way we have been able to do this for 51 years. And I do, George, like what you said about the power that we have as individuals. Sometimes the thought that there's some all-powerful something behind the scenes that's controlling everything can give us pause and make us forget about the power that we have when we move in movements, when we take steps.
Concert. Yeah, that's right.
When we move in concert with each other, and when each individual takes a step, when the first person steps out and stands up, it makes a difference. And that's what you're talking about. The legacy of your life will be at least your public life. 212-209-2950. There's the first two, George. If we can get those
two calls, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, we need 18 more if we're going to make that 2,000 target.
Or we can get a couple of those people who want to have dinner with you, and if they want to pledge at the $1,000 level.
In there, and then I'll need to stay in the U.S. longer in order to fit in all these lunches and dinners. But
that's right.
We'll do our best for sure. And if you pledge $1,000, then I definitely will sit down for a meal with you. But you'll have to pay because we have to keep the $1,000 for WBAI and for its future health and well-being. My point on the conspiracy theories is this, Tony, that there's a real danger in imagining that the enemies of freedom are all James Bonds. But in my experience, most of the time they're Austin Powers rather than James Bonds, and we can beat them if we stand up together and move forward together and clearly.
Yes, and I believe in both of these ideas simultaneously. 212-209-2950. I really, though, believe in the power of the people, George. And that's what this radio station has been about for 51 years. It is the fact that the people have a voice, that the people can speak out when the mainstream media will not, that the people can hear their own voices, people from their own communities. That's what Pacifica Radio is, has been, and will continue to be, and that's what WBAI is very much for New York City. 212-209-2950 is the phone number for you to call. We're looking for a $100 pledge of your support for a progressive voice in New York media outside of New York, for a progressive station in the middle of your dial at 99.5 FM. That's what we're looking for from you folks, because there are no commercials on this station, because we are not beholden to the corporations, and because we trust you, our listeners, to stand up and to support us very much in a financial way. 212-209-2950. Call and give us a pledge for the mother of all talk shows. Mr. Galloway.
Well, John Lennon wrote that song. I think he wrote it in New York City, Power to the People. It was a powerful anthem. And I once was in Managua, in Nicaragua, during the first period of Sandinista government. And I heard 500,000 people chanting Poder Popular, people power. It's really immense, people power. You know, the dictator in Egypt, Hosni Mubarak, was brought down. He was brought down by people power. You know, we can do it, but we need to have media. We need to have a radio station. We need to have leaders. We need to have talkers. We need to have the wherewithal to mobilize the people. And if people don't care enough about that and just let it go, well, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. So please, the phones need to ring and ring for the rest of this show.
That's right. We've got about 4 minutes left, folks. 212-209-2950. We're looking for your support this morning of the mother of all talk shows, your support of WBAI. We're asking you, we are not offering you a premium. We're asking you to pledge because you believe in what it is that we're doing on this program and because you believe in what it is that we're doing at this station. And as George reminds you regularly, he does not get paid to do this. People are trying to interview him constantly because he's one of the people who is involved in this scandal, this Murdoch scandal. His phone was hacked, and he has a court case coming in December. He could be elsewhere doing all kinds of things in media. He has chosen to spend his time to be here with you as a volunteer and to present his points of view on WBAI. We ask for your support of that by making a pledge at 212-209-2950. We want to get 5 more people in this last 3 minutes. Let's see if we can do that. 5 more of you. We only have 3 minutes. We have volunteers standing by. We have some young folks here today volunteering, George. They've come in from a Wildcat program, I believe it's called. I'm not sure exactly. But they are here helping out in the phone room, and I want to thank them for being here this morning.
Well, let's keep them busy. That's one call, so that's 4 more we need before I go off the air.
That's right.
4 calls, please. 4 donations. I've donated my time, and as Tony said, at the moment, that's fairly precious, that time. And there were many other things I could have been doing for the last hour. But I'd rather talk to you, because I really respect WBAI. I love Tony, I love Ife, and the others in the station. I love the people that I met when I spoke at the Ethical Society. I'm looking forward to doing it again. I've met 1 or 2 of the other presenters. I love them as well. And I love, above all, the idea that in the heart of New York City, in Wall Street no less, we are flying a flag for freedom. We are flying a flag for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And that's why we need 4 more calls. Right. 4 more calls. That's all I'm asking for before I sign off.
Yes, well, we got 1 of them. We want 3 more people. Just 3 of you. I know that there are people listening to us as far away as Connecticut. Thank you very much to Connecticut for listening. We got a pledge from Connecticut this morning, as a matter of fact. There are people listening for your program as far away as Pennsylvania. They can occasionally hear us right across the river in New Jersey, certainly, and in all 5 boroughs. There are enough people listening who can call up and pledge. 3 more of you, just to make a pledge of support.
I've got a mass following in New Jersey. I pull New Jersey crowds of 5, 6, 7, 800 people. So if there are any people from the Muslim community in New Jersey who know me, who are listening to this, spread the word, please, because I haven't had 1 call from any one of my friends in New Jersey. I've had some New Jersey calls, and I'm grateful for them. But I need the Muslim community that know me well and support me to listen to this show and to pledge to WBAI.
Yes, and that's one of the communities that we're trying to serve a little more, George, to reach out to, and certainly to let them know that you're on the airwaves here. 212-209-2950. Inside of 2 minutes, we're looking for 2 more phone callers to pledge your support to the mother of all talk shows, to say thank you to WBAI for putting this program on the air, for having George Galloway here. I'm certainly proud of it. I'm certainly happy that we have this relationship, George, and that you are able to connect with the New York audience. And I think that they should respond, and that's all we ask. It's kind of a contract. We put on this kind of programming. You respond with your pledges, your donations, and thank WBAI. 212-209-2950. Any final words, Mr. Galloway?
Well, it's been marvelous, as it is every week, and I'm really glad to talk to you and to have you talk to me. But we can only keep it going if we get these calls, if we get these pledges. Tony is talking himself out here, as am I. There's only moments left in this show. Please make the phone ring. Just 2 more times.
Yep, there's
so
one more person.
One more time. Who's going to be the last one? Please, 1 more call so I can leave here with a spring in my step. Just 1 more call before I have to sign off. Who's going to be that last person that's going to send me away from this with a spring in my step and with a light heart?
212-209-2950. Thank you, New York.
And was made strong by the hands of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing another song?